So, dear friends, meeting again with the organon, the concluding part of the theoretic part of the organ of medicine, and we are on the aphorism number 69. We have finished big footnote to this paragraph earlier, where here Hahnemann have explained about the importance of antipathy in certain cases when the person is in the state of um, suspended animation, where there is a question of life and death. That is the only situation. Sometimes you have to take the help of such antipathic measure or auxiliary measure to bring back and to come into a life, to bring back that patient into the life. And such a thing which you have to utilize on the basis of your logic. So it is not always that you go with the only with the dynamic way and you treat the patients with dynamic remedies. It is not like that. Ultimately, you have to treat the patient with your logic first. First always comes the logic, and then rest of the things. First, you must know, utilize your logic, whether it is really curable or whether you have to cure him or not to cure him. That is more important. Whether it is physiological or pathological, that question first. Second question, if it is curable or incurable. If it is curable, then you have to go ahead with dynamic remedies. If it is incurable or because of certain reasons or such an acute emergency, you have to take help of the other pathies also. So logic is very important thing, and which he has mentioned in that footnote number 67, and he defines that this is the time where you can utilize the homeopathy antipathy instead of a homeopathy to bring back the life of the person. So that's all we have discussed a lot regarding it, and how the homeopathic medicine acts. That also we have discussed in last lecture. Now we'll turn towards the 69 aphorism. Let us learn a big aphorism is there, 69. We'll learn that again, many reasons regarding the antipathy and examples of antipathy he wants to explain over there. Aphorism 69. In the antipathic, that is palliative mode of treatment, however, precisely the reverse of this takes place. The medicinal symptoms which the physician opposes to the disease symptoms, for example, the insensibility and stupefaction caused by the opium in its primary action to acute pain, is certainly not aligned, not wholly allopathic to the latter. There is a manifest relation of medicinal symptoms to the disease symptoms, but it is reverse of what should be. It is here intended that the annihilation of the disease symptom shall be effected by an opposite medicinal symptom, which is nevertheless impossible. So what he explains, if it is even though there is a relationship between patient's complaints and the antipathic measure, but what relation? The relation is the contraria contraries. The patient symptoms explain something, and exactly opposite to the patient symptom is the medicinal action. And if it is there, there is no chance of annihilation of the original disease. There is only one thing which can happen is the palliation. Because in the nature itself, these things happen. When two natural dissimilar diseases meets inside one human being, then if the new one is stronger, it suspends the old one for time being, and when it disappears its course or it leaves, the original one reappears. And this is what happens with the antibiotic. So it never cures, it never annihilates, it never completely removes. No doubt, the antipathically chosen medicine touches precisely the same disease point in the organism as the homeopathic medicine chosen on the account of their similar affection it produces. But the former means antipathy. But the former covers but lightly the opposite symptom of the disease only as an opposite, and makes it unobservable to our life principle for a short time only. So that the first period of action of antagonistic palliative, the vital force, perceives nothing disagreeable from either of two, neither from the disease symptoms nor from the medicinal symptoms, as they seem both to have mutually removed and dynamically neutralized one another as it were. For example, the stupefying power of the opium does to this to the pain. In the first minutes, the vital force feels quite well and perceives neither the stupefaction of opium nor the pain of disease. So he's explaining how the antagonistic remedy acts. If you give any antagonistic remedy, means antipathic remedy, on the basis of contraria contraris curantia. So, for example, you have given opium to the patient and patient is having pain. What will happen? If you give the opium to the patient, immediately there will be a stupefaction, there will be a completely painlessness, as happens with the morphine, opium derivative. If you give the morphine to the patient, cancer patient, he feels so happy after taking it because exactly opposite state which develops under the action. It is till that period, vital force never understands what is going on because it is the direct action of that medicine in the material form on the human life. And because of which, because of under the influence of that, where vital force doesn't have capacity to react and it doesn't understand to react, it goes under the influence of that medicine and patient feels better. And this is truth. This happens every time. Any painkiller used to work in this manner. Many painkillers are these derivatives of this opium. And that's why the person feels better for a time being. In the first minute, the vital force feels quite well and perceives neither the stupefaction of the opium nor the pain of disease. But as the antagonistic medicinal symptom cannot, as in homeopathic treatment, occupy the place of morbid derangement present in the organism, in the sensation of the life principle as the similar stronger artificial disease, and cannot therefore, like homeopathic medicine, affect the vital force with similar artificial disease, so as to able to step into the place of original natural morbid derangement. The palliative medicine must, as a long as a thing totally different from and opposite of disease derangement, leave the latter uneradicated. It renders it, as before said, by a semblance. Semblance means resemblance, similarity. By a semblance of dynamic neutralization, at first unfelt by the vital force, but like every medicinal disease, it is soon spontaneously extinguished and not only leaves the disease behind as it was, but compels the vital force as it must, like all palliatives, be given in large doses in order to effect the apparent removal to produce an opposite condition, that is according to aphorism number 30, 63 and 64. To this palliative medicine, the reverse of the medicinal action, consequently the analog of still present and undestroyed natural morbid derangement, which is necessarily strengthened and increased by this addition reaction against the palliative produced by the vital force. So a big sentence. This was the Hahnemannian style, or it was the style to write the things during Hahnemannian time. So if you go with the books at that time, you will get these big sentences, but it has a big meaning. What he is explaining, in such types of cases where there is an antipathic measure which is used in large doses, at that time, under the action of that antipathic measure, a person feels very well. If you give a purgative to the patient who is suffering from the constipation, until the patient continues to take the purgative, he is very happy because he is getting proper stools. But when he stops taking that, then when the action is exhausted, then the vital force starts reacting. It starts reacting against the primary action. It produces the exactly opposite state. Means the original state of the constipation, which comes over there and which comes over there and it reflects back, and then it comes in increased strength. This is so common. This is so common, which happens over there. Many times it happens in such a manner that aggravation is always followed. This is the secondary counter action given by the vital force against the primary action. And it happens only when the things are used on antipathic principle or dissimilarity on and in larger doses. Larger doses used to produce strong primary action against which the secondary counteraction is used to follow, which is the reaction given by the vital force. And when it happens, it used to produce an aggravation. And he is explaining all those things in order to explain to you why the effect of painkiller never lasts forever, why it never cures the disease permanently, why such a palliative measure never works permanently, why the person who is taking sleeping pills never gets sleep next time he becomes habituated or addicted to that, why these things happen, the reason behind that he tries to explain over there. And this is nothing but the secondary counteraction which is the reaction given by the vital force against the primary action which starts over there. Then he explains in the italics what he writes down is very important. The disease symptom, this single part of the disease, consequently becomes worse after the term of action of palliative has expired, worse in proportion to the magnitude of the dose of the palliative. See, this is very important what he is explaining. So whenever you have used the palliative, yes, patient feels happy. This you can see very commonly with rheumatic cases. This you can see very commonly with the patients who suffers from the fever. And if you give just a antipyretic, till the action is there, patient is happy. And when fever recurs, when vital force reacts, it is more than earlier phase. This is very, very, very commonly happen. And that's why one more caution I want to tell you, all of you, if the patient has consumed any paracetamol or any antipyretic and he comes to you, my suggestion to all of you is that don't use homeopathic medicine at that specific time. Because when you give homeopathic medicine even though on the basis of symptom similarity, your vital force reacts back to the primary action which is developed because of the crocin or any antibiotic, and then temperature increases. Then patient blames that we have taken the homeopathic medicine and our disease is aggravated. This is not aggravation. This is the secondary counteraction which has developed because of crocin. And this one should not do. So I refuse to take. I ask them to take the allopathy fully, and thereafter, henceforth, if you have fever, come directly without taking any antipyretic remedy. I always tell the patient, because these things happens to be there, and one must know regarding it that if patient who has consumed any antibiotic comes to you, tell them friendly that now you take the whole course of allopathy, and hereafter, whenever you want to take homeopathy, don't take such a medicine, because palliation is always followed by an aggravation with this measure. Accordingly, to keep to the same example, the larger the dose of the opium given to allay the pain, so much the more does the pain increased beyond its original intensity as soon as opium has exhausted its action. And this you commonly see when you observe the cancer cases who are on morphine. You observe that how the patient goes on increasing demand with the morphine tablet. At first, on day one, he is very happy with one tablet of morphine. And soon the action vanishes, he asks for another. And see, he goes with the morphine poisoning instead of his original disease because it goes on increasing demand. And this is only because when pain vanishes under the morphine, when it recurs, it is more severe than in character. And this is what Hahnemann wants to explain, the truth behind these antipathic measures. And there are many footnotes to this paragraph. We have to learn those footnotes. There are, I think, 3 to 4 footnotes are there to this paragraph. We'll go one by one. So footnote number 68, we'll learn that. In the living human being, no permanent neutralization or contrary or antagonistic sensation can take place, as happens with the substances of opposite qualities in the chemical laboratory, where For instance, sulfuric acid and potash unite to form perfectly different substance, a neutral salt, which is how now no longer either acid or alkali and is not decomposed even by heat. Such amalgamation means ekatrikaran, to bring together. Such amalgamation and thorough combination to form something permanently neutral and indifferent do not, as has been said, ever takes place with respect to dynamic impressions of an antagonistic nature in our specific apparatus. He is explaining that this never happens like a chemical laboratory. We have learned that when we mix acid with alkali, we get a neutral, it becomes neutral. This is true in the when you consider the things material. Human is not a material. So it never happens that person who is having the problem at the dynamic level, and if you give the material medicine is not able to neutralize the dynamic problem. In fact, it never works at the level of dynamics as the homeopathic medicine works, because the material larger doses used to produce direct effect on the body. By its larger doses, it used to affect and produce its own features over there, and the dynamic remains as it is. The dynamic derangement of vital force never gets changed, it remains as it is, and that's why it never used to neutralize the dynamic problem. And because of which, many a times you will find that after action is vanished, the original condition reappears, because material never neutralizes the dynamic thing. Only a semblance of the neutralization and mutual removal occurs in such cases at first, but the antagonistic sensation do not permanently remove one another. The tears of mourner means एखाद्या मृत व्यक्तीबद्दल शोक करणारा. Tears of the mourner will be dried for but a short time by laughable play. The jokes are, however, soon forgotten, and his tears will flow still more abundantly than before. And this happens many a times. You have seen that person who is already in a grief or already in a depression because of some grief. And if you try to laugh him by certain means, it never works for forever. Time being, he might be happy, he might be palliated, but as the things goes on, he goes into the same state again. So he's explaining the reason why the person never gets cured with the help of antipathic measure. One more footnote where he explains, footnote number 69, which is related with the same thing. Plain as this proposition is, it has been misunderstood, and in opposition to it, some have asserted that the palliative in its secondary action, which would then be similar to the disease present, must be capable of curing just as well as homeopathic medicine does it by its primary action. But they did not reflect that the secondary action is not a product of the medicine, but invariably of the antagonistically acting vital force of the organism. That, therefore, this secondary action resulting from the vital force on the employment of a palliative is a state similar to the symptoms of the disease, which the palliative left uneradicated, and which the reaction of the vital force against the palliative consequently increased still more. So here again he wants to explain the same thing, that when you use such type of palliative for the patient, considering his one or two symptoms, because palliatives are always considered on the single symptom. If the person is having the fever, you give the consider that single symptom, you give the antipyretic. If the patient is having pain, you consider that one of the symptom against which you use the analgesic. So such palliatives used to work only on the one symptom, and it used to produce its effect because it has been used in larger doses. So you have given, for example, person who is suffering from severe rheumatism, and you have taken only the pain of the, consider the pain of the patient. You have utilized, for example, any painkiller. And what happens under the action of that painkiller, it might be whatever it might be, person will feel temporarily better. still the action is going on. It might be 6 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, depending upon the half life of that substance. And when it disappears, at that time, the vital force of the person reacts back, and it reacts back again to that primary action. And when it reacts, it is always with the increased strength. It is as good as the sponge ball. When you put it down with force, it goes more up. It is in the similar manner it works. It works in the similar manner, and because of which the palliation is always followed by an aggravation. So this happens every time when you use this principle, and that's why there is no need to utilize it generally. And last thing, last footnote to this paragraph, and in fact, it is the last footnote of this uh, first theoretical session. What is last footnote? As when in dark dungeon, there is a prisoner could be could with difficulty recognize objects close to him. Alcohol is suddenly lightened. Everything is instantly eliminated in the most consolatory manner to the unhappy rage. When it is extinguished, the brighter the flame. But when it is extinguished, the brighter the flame was previously, the blacker is the night, which now envelops him and renders everything about him much more difficult to be seen than before. So, again, one more example of the antipathic measure, which happens at the dynamic level also that he mentioned. And this is a common example. We are sitting over here in the light, all of a sudden, the lights vanish. Everything become completely black. For some time, we cannot understand anything. And all of a sudden, light comes and again disappears. Temporarily, you feel happy with that moment. Yes, there is light. And when it disappears again, you feel more darkness. This happens quite common. This is a common example which happens at the dynamic level. Hahnemann tries to explain his concept why there is an aggravation followed after a palliation. And in order to explain this, he has tried his level best to explain all those things in this footnote. So this aphorism, and in fact last few aphorisms, he tried to explain his concept, why it happens. The scientific reasoning based upon understanding, based upon logic, he tried to explain over there. So these are different examples which he tried to explain regarding the antipathy, allopathy, homeopathy, all those things with the help of primary and secondary action. And still, whatever he has said regarding the dynamic action of the homeopathic remedies, which are used in very minute doses, whatever he has used or explained is on the basis of logic, which cannot be explained with the help of any material, because the medicines which are dynamic, the plane is dynamic, the disease is dynamic. So you have to utilize logic and you have to explain it on the basis of cause and effects only. So this is what he tried to explain in this aphorism along with the footnote. Only last aphorism from this theoretical part is still remaining. We have to discuss it in tomorrow's session. I think Dr. Pradeep, he has some question over there. So we'll have his question and we'll discuss that first. Yes, sir.
सर प्रायमरी आणि सेकंडरी ऍक्शन जी सांगितली गेलेली तर ही मराठीत बोललं चालेल ना?
चालेल ना, चालेल, काहीच प्रॉब्लेम नाही.
हा तर हे लॅक्सेटिव्ह जे पेशंट घेतात कायमपूर्ण वगैरे किंवा एका पाठोपाठ दुसरं त्याच्यामध्ये पण हेच म्हणता येईल ना आपल्याला प्रायमरी आणि सेकंडरी ऍक्शन?
अगदी बरोबर आहे, तसंच घडतं. कारण प्रायमरी ऍक्शन खाली पेशंटला लॅक्झेटिव्ह घेतलं बरं वाटतं आणि पेशंट हॅज टू कंटिन्यू इट for it. Once he stops, he again lands into the same complaints. When the action vanishes, he will going to get same thing, same problem. लॅक्झेटिव्हच्या बाबतीत असं असतं, स्लीपिंग पिल्सच्या बाबतीमध्ये असं असतं. ही यूज टू गेट द सेम प्रॉब्लेम. नेक्स्ट डे ही वॉन्ट्स दॅट, अदरवाइज ही बिकम स्लीपलेस. It is quite common, and that's why people becomes addicted to that. कायम चूर्णाचं नाव त्याकरताच आहे, कायम घ्यावं लागतं.
सर अजून एक हे होतं की पॅलिएशन जे आता आपण ह्या अफोरिझम मध्ये डिस्कस केलं, तर मदर टिंक्चर मध्ये डायनेमिक प्रॉपर्टीज नसतात ना,
बरोबर.
तर मग मदर टिंक्चर मध्ये पॅलिएशन होईल का? आणि त्याला जोडून एक क्वेश्चन असा की जसं आपण डिस्कस केलं की ॲलोपॅथी मध्ये आपण फिवर साठी पॅरासिटामॉल दिलं, पेन साठी एक अनाल्जेसिक दिलं, त्या पद्धतीने जर का होमिओपॅथी प्रॅक्टिस केली पण ती डायल्युशन रेमेडीची केली, का नी जॉईंट पेन आहे म्हणून एक त्याच एका पेशंटला रस्टॉक्स दिलं आणि सर्दी खोकला आहे ड्राय कप म्हणून ब्रायोनिया दिलं, एकाच पेशंट मध्ये दोन रेमेडी एका वेळेला वापरल्यात, फॉर एक्झाम्पल 30-30 पोटेन्सी, तर मग या कंडिशन मध्ये काय होणार सर?
दोन गोष्टी. पहिल्या महत्वाची गोष्ट यातली अशी की मदर टिंक्चर्स ऑलवेज ऍक्ट ऑन पॅलिएटिव्ह मेजर. मदर टिंक्चर्स आर नॉट क्युरेटिव्ह. दॅट इज फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन. डेफिनेटली कुठलंही. आणि मदर टिंक्चर्स, द रोल ऑफ मदर टिंक्चर्स इज फॉर द पर्पज ऑफ पॅलिएशन. When you are giving the mother tincture, that is for the purpose of palliation. Patient is in status asthmaticus and you have to relieve him. And if you are getting right remedy and right stimulus, it's wonderful. But if you are not getting it, and many times you cannot get, then to relieve that, if you are using the blata, it is based upon the only on the basis of direct action. When it is used,
Yes,
it is always to be a palliative.
palliative. Okay.
Question of when you are using dynamic remedies. आता डायनॅमिक्स मधला माझा कन्सेप्ट फार महत्वाचा, तो मी पुढे बोलणार होतो, परंतु तो आता मी करत नव्हतो. हॅनेमन सरांनी डायनॅमिक्स मांडले हे फार शेवटी, म्हणजे शेवटी मांडले म्हणजे काय, तर हॅनेमन सरांनी डायनॅमिक्स मांडताना 5th एडिशनला डायनॅमिक्स व्हायटल फोर्स, कन्सेप्ट ऑफ व्हायटल फोर्स हॅनेमन सरांनी मांडला. तो 5th एडिशन आहे. 5th एडिशन ही 1833 मध्ये आली आणि 1833 टू 1842 जेव्हा 6th एडिशन प्रिपेअर होत होती, दॅट वॉज द ओनली टाइम विच ही गॉट टू एक्सप्लेन मोर अँड मोर डायनॅमिक्स. असा एक थोडासा उलटा विचार करायचा की हॅनेमन सर अजून 20 वर्ष जगले असते तर हॅनेमन सर
नक्कीच काहीतरी ऍडव्हान्सेस दिले असते अजून त्यांनी.
आपल्या हातात 10वी एडिशन आली असती, पुढची एडिशन आली असती. ही यूज टू बी डू एक्सपेरिमेंटेशन इन हिज लाईफ. ही यूज टू डू एक्सपेरिमेंटेशन आणि एक्सपेरिमेंट करत होते ते, प्रत्येक वेळेला एक्सपेरिमेंट मधनं काय मिळतं हे मांडत होते. आता लॉ ऑफ सिम्प्लेक्स हा लॉ खूप आधी एक्सप्लेन केलेला. Ali, I will explain all those things later in English. Don't worry. This law, which came into existence very early when Hahnemann used to practice with mother tincture. It was not a law which came after the dynamics when he has started the dynamics. Two material things when we put together, it used to produce a third element which he has already mentioned in this footnote. This is true when you are dealing with the materials, but it is not true when you put the two dynamics together. Means you are not putting it as a mixture, but if you are giving one bryonia one time and after some time if you are giving rush talk, these are two dynamic stimulus, they are not material. They are not at all material. I will give you simple example. On one side of you there is father, your father is sitting. On another side your brother is sitting. In front of you your wife is sitting, and behind you your friend is sitting. All of them are dynamic, and you are also dynamic. Does it happen that if your father said something, and is there any confusion that some action has been developed by father, you react to your wife? No, you react to him at the way he has acted, the same way it acts. So it doesn't produce any problem, even though if you give medicines in such a manner. So if you'll go through the old literature, Kent has changed the medicines every hourly or sometimes even 15 minutes also if the state has not changed. So it is one important thing which I have already explained, that law of simplex is mentioned in a proper manner, which is not mentioned over there. It is giving a single simple medicine at a time. What is at a time is called as a law of simplex. Hahnemann said if you are getting a patient, you are giving one medicine, for example, Rushtox, after 1 hour, patient comes and he had another state and now you are giving the bryonia. It is not like, it is not against homeopathy. And this one has to understand. All those concepts should be understood in a proper manner, then there is no confusion. In tomorrow's sessions, we'll have many more questions. Do come over there sharp at 6 o'clock so that we'll have such a discussion and it will be helpful for everyone. Because now,
Thank you, sir. And is it open to all?
yeah, open to all. This is open to all, and we
Okay,
have.
sir. Then I will share with my friends. Actually, I have just now. I think I have called you in last week for a case, and after that, I got your number and saved it.
Okay.
And so I have just scrolling that status today, and I thought some